It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us to talk about a great resource for Lent, specifically made for Catholic teens. It's called Lent One Day at a Time for Catholic Teens. Joining us to talk about it is half of the authors, Katie Prejean McGrady. Thanks for being here, Katie.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kyle. I appreciate it.
So you wrote this with your husband. Your past books you wrote by yourself. I'm sure he had some input on them. What's the biggest difference between you and Tommy in like work ethic or writing style?
Well, I'd written books before, so like I kind of had a routine, and he didn't. So he had to create a routine. And as the more, let's say, type A person in the marriage, I tried to make the routine for him, and we very quickly realized that wasn't going to work. So like what we ended up doing by the time it was all said and done is we just made a Google Drive file. So thank God for Google Drive. We kind of divvied up like, okay, these are the days I'm going to take, and these are the days you're going to take, and we have to hit a certain number by the end of the week. And so we would just kind of each work independently and then go back and edit each other for, because the book is quite short. We had to make sure that our word count was exactly what it needed to be for every single day, which is actually harder to do than just writing a lot in the first place, is try to write or say something in very few words. So we'd go to opposite ends of the house and work. So I don't actually know what he was doing on his computer other than typing. He might have been like watching a video and then writing a sentence. I tend to put headphones in and just kind of disappear. But it was fun. It was challenging. It was fun. It was good for our marriage. We hope it's good for some young people. So that's the goal.
Yeah. Why did you want to do this for young people specifically? What do you like about teenagers?
Yeah, so they're my bread and butter as far as events and speaking. That's the young people are who I spend my most time with. And then I taught high school for 5 years, and Tommy was a campus minister and a youth minister and a diocesan director. So every year we'd get to Lent, and we'd kind of like look around our classrooms or look around our youth groups and be like, okay, what are we going to do with these kids to help them understand their faith? Or, this is the perfect opportunity to do a deep dive into something. And resources were sparse. I mean, there was stuff from different companies, and there were good little reflection books, but we were oftentimes creating like these hodgepodge from all these, kind of like a choose your own adventure Lenten resource. And so we just kind of were like, why don't we just write one that we would want to use? And so we did. So we really wrote it selfishly, because it was like, this is what I would want to hand the teenagers in my classroom or the kids that I meet at these events or the young people at my youth group. So let's write it for everybody. That was really why. We couldn't find something we could use, so we just created it.
But why Lent? I mean, you could say that about Advent, about Christmas, about confirmation, about being a godfather. I mean, any topic in the world, you could say, oh, it'd be great to have a resource on this.
Yeah. So Lent specifically, I think, is, it's an entry point and an access point into faith, because whether we realize it or not, the whole world kind of pays attention to it. Like I'm in the South, so of course we have Mardi Gras, right? This big season leading up to Ash Wednesday. And like even people that are not faithfully going to Mass every Sunday, the statistics show us that more people show up to Mass on Ash Wednesday, which is not a holy day of obligation, because there's like this cultural element to it. And on top of that, there's statistics that show that millennials, so my generation, so this book is written for Gen Z specifically right now, but millennials, so the generation Tommy and I are, over 40% of millennials, even if they're disaffiliated from the church, give up something for Lent. Because again, it's like this cultural thing, and they're choosing to not eat meat on Fridays, and they're showing up on Ash Wednesday. So we figured Lent is already kind of this culturally Catholic time. Whether people realize it or not, it's happening around them. Why don't we write the resource that lets young people more intentionally pay attention to this specific 40-day time period, in the hopes that something will shift or change in their hearts and in their minds during this 40 days. So then it will hopefully change in their hearts and in their minds for the rest of the year, perhaps for their whole life, right? It takes 30 days to build a habit. So this gives us 30 days plus 10. So we could really solidify these good prayer habits and these good sacrifice habits and these good just read scripture and reflect every single day habits and how to serve other people. And these very incremental, small little steps, when everybody else around you is doing it, maybe it'll take some root in their lives.
Yeah. So have you experienced that yourself, some kind of fruit from a past Lent, or maybe something that you're looking forward to for this upcoming Lent?
So I've gotten super practical in the past couple Lents as kind of like the mental reset for the year. right? So like you make this New Year's resolution and then you fail like by mid-February. And so depending on when Lent is, it's like the perfect reset button to once again be like, okay, this is what I'm going to resolve to do spiritually. This is what I'm going to resolve to do health-wise. This is what I'm going to resolve to do in my family. So in the past couple of years, I've been able to kind of really reevaluate what did I fail at after my New Year's resolutions and how can I kind of hit the reset button. So last year I gave up Amazon for Lent. Like shopping on Amazon. Cause I had a 1-year-old, or she's 1-year-old now, but she was like 6-7 months old at the time. And so like you need gear, or you think you do. And so I was spending so much time just needlessly scrolling through Amazon and online shopping in general and wasting money and like cluttering my house with junk that I didn't really need. So I deleted the apps from my phone and I've actually never put them back on there. And like I credit Lent to like not just kind of kicking this online shopping habit that wasn't good for anybody, much less my husband who hates clutter in the house, but like also it allowed me to put my phone down because I wasn't so attached to looking at those apps. And so then by putting my phone down, that forced me to do other things because, it's like if you're not staring at your phone, you want to do something. So I was concentrating on my daughter that was right in front of me, or picking up a spiritual book, or like praying the rosary while I was washing the dishes instead of just listening to something. So yeah, like last Lent was really, really fruitful. And then we wrote the book in June of last year for this Lent. And so we both kind of took inventory and stock of, okay, what did we do last year that was really good? What practical things did we do? How can we write this for teenagers in such a way that they wouldn't be intimidated? So yeah, I definitely think our Lent really helped us in this.
Yeah. We're talking with Katie Prejean McGrady, who wrote the book Lent One Day at a Time for Catholic Teens with her husband, Tommy McGrady. And I call it a book, and that's maybe being a little generous. It really is a booklet.
Yeah.
And can you explain the layout and the structure of this Lenten guide?
Yeah, so it's really straightforward. It's reflections every day, and there's kind of like a little structure for each day. So we, on the Sundays of the week, we ask them to kind of pick a challenge that they can focus on for the rest of the week. And then after they pick that challenge, then the following, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there's a short reflection. There's a short little question that they can journal through. Just a very, very simple closing prayer. And then my favorite part about the book is that there's actually this like, are you feeling ambitious kind of part where like the young people that maybe are already really checked into their faith, or they want to go a little deeper, and Lent for them is not just a chance to be introduced to spiritual practices, but is a chance to go even deeper. There's this further challenge to read something else in Scripture, or to go, the first Thursday of Advent is to go pray in an adoration chapel or in an open church for a few minutes. So really kind of help them go a little further. And then Saturday is kind of inventory day. So you think about the week before, you think about all the different things that you both reflected on, maybe the themes throughout the week, the challenge that you selected, how'd you do with that? And of course, these challenges are based around, whether the young people know it or not, based around kind of the three common movements of Lent: prayer, almsgiving, and sacrifice or fasting. Mm-hmm. And so these challenges, we're really hoping the young people kind of do like a little personal inventory and figure out, okay, like this is where I really need to focus, or this is where I'm lacking, or this is where, last week I did this particular challenge, so this week I'm going to try to do something different. We wanted the structure of the book to be super simple to approach, not really intimidating. That's why it's just a day per page. They're not super long reflections. They're not overwhelming. Teachers could use it in their classrooms. Youth ministers could use it in their youth groups. Moms and dads could use it at the dinner table with their teenage kids. A kid could just carry it around in their backpack and pull it out. It takes 5 minutes to read and then shove it away, but then be thinking about it throughout the rest of the day. We wanted it to be super accessible in that regard. So it is generous to call it a book, so thank you. But it's really more, I like to think of it like a pamphlet. It's your Lenten pamphlet. And the best part is that it's not just for 2019. Like, we didn't put dates on any of the pages because we really did want like a teacher to be able to buy a classroom set. And if they really like it, to be able to order more for the next year, to reuse those books if some of the kids didn't take them home. We wanted it to be kind of this universal research for any Lent. A person could use this, could pick this up. And it's written for teens, but I always say this. My mom likes everything I write, but she told me, she was like, oh, I can't wait to use some of these. Like some of the challenges might be specific to like teenagers in school, but like one of the first challenges is write an encouraging or affirming note to someone anonymously. Like anybody could do that.
Right.
My mom could do that for my dad, or she could do that for a client, or the neighbor. So they're very universal in that regard too.
I'm glad you say that, because I was reading this thinking, man, have I not matured since a teenager? Because these all seem pretty applicable to me. Another thing that I like about it is that I think a lot of times Lent can kind of be thought of as a very negative thing, as sacrifice and things that you give up and things that you kind of have to drudge through to do to add these things into your life and make yourself miserable. But you really focus a lot on like, what are you most grateful at the end of the week? How did you see God act and what stood out to you most to you? A lot of positive things, looking at blessings, and I think it's got kind of a more positive spin to Lent than a lot of resources that I've seen in the past.
Yeah, I mean, one of the opening stories right at the top of the book is I had this student in class one time who, like, a week into Lent, he ate a piece of candy, and he was just like, oh my gosh, I ruined the whole season.
Right.
And I think, it's like we're very much a woe is me attitude sometimes during Lent because it's sackcloth and ashes, it's gray, it's purple. We're preparing for the death of the Lord. But I always like to remind myself that the only reason we're walking through Lent is because we're trying to get to Easter. Mm-hmm. So, like, if I know I'm looking for, yes, obviously we're going to meditate upon the cross and we're going to meditate upon the suffering of Christ, but the cross comes with the resurrection and the empty tomb. And so we really wanted to give some of that hopefulness into, like, this season is so that when you are like Peter and John running to the empty tomb to see Christ risen, like, you're doing so knowing that you are ready to approach that empty tomb, and you are ready to not just embrace your cross, but to know that with that cross comes victory. And maybe that's like super, inside baseball meta. Like, I don't know if kids are going to pick up on that while they're reading it, but we definitely thought about that when we were writing it.
Yeah, and I think that kind of maybe subtle depth is what makes this pretty powerful, because the quote on the front, the endorsement says, absolutely doable, which I think is a great description of it. It explains it well. It's simple and short. You could pound this out in, minutes, but really could be as deep and take as long as you're willing. You can reflect on these things for a half an hour or an hour if you wanted to, and journal on them, things like that. One of the questions that I kind of wondered is, do you think that this could be done as a group, or is this better to be done solo?
So I wrote it in mind with teachers in their classrooms, talking about some of these questions. So the grow your soul part, the questions are, what's a struggle that you've had to overcome, or, who helped you along the way? How'd you make it through? My real vision with it was like students in a classroom or students in a youth group. They all have a copy of it in front of them. They read the little reflection. They journal for a few minutes with that question, and then they have dialogue and discussion together. And, not every student's going to raise their hand and answer. Not every kid's going to want to bare their soul, but some will, and could spark really good conversation. So absolutely, I really did envision it being bought. And that's why we wanted to keep the price point very low, is that parents and teachers and youth ministers could buy it in bulk for their kids. And it's the cost of a cup of coffee. Not even, right? Like, it's less than a Starbucks cup of coffee if you get the fancy coffees.
Right.
And in the hopes of, I actually, a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine, Robert Prejean, he has 4 teenage children. He bought 10 copies of it from me because he wants his kids were like, oh, we all want a copy, and then we want to give one to our friend.
Oh,
and
nice.
they were giving them out and I was like, that's so cool. Like, and it was, it was cheap for him to be able to do that for his kids, but they came up with the idea of, we want to give this to people that we're close to. Mm-hmm. That's really my hope, is that it's used by groups of people, groups of young people, adults, kind of helping them walk through the Lenten experience. And then a young person could, of course, just keep it by their bedside and do it by themselves. It's kind of a both and thing. But yeah, I did write it as a teacher thinking about a classroom setting.
Perfect. All right, well, where can people get 1 or 10 or 3,000 copies of it?
So AveMariaPress.com or Amazon. It's on Amazon. It's in stock right now. You can actually, if you order it right now, you can get it in one-day shipping for free. I'm looking at it right now on Amazon. So Lent starts soon. You can get it tomorrow. Stock up.
Again, it's called Lent, One Day at a Time for Catholic Teens. Katie Prejean McGrady, thank you so much for sharing this with us, and I think this is going to be a great reflection, not just for teens, but anybody who's looking for a little daily spiritual boost. So thanks for sharing it with us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kyle.